Hello Fishers Tigers, this is Mr. Albonetti here to talk to you about how to ace the SAT. I'll specifically focus on how to attack reading comprehension passages. So here in front of you, you have the SAT study guide. This is a rather thick book that the College Board sells for about 20 bucks on Amazon. It's a useful book. I've enjoyed it. I use it in all of my SAT classes. I encourage you to use it. You should have in front of you a passage. We're going to look at this passage and talk about how to attack the passage, how to answer these questions most effectively. So I'm going to begin by going to, the beginning of the SAT itself. This book, I recommend it because it has 8 practice tests. These are real SAT tests because the same company that makes the SAT also makes this book, so they're bona fide tests, and they give you an insight into what the SAT requires, the difficulty of the questions. We're going to look at practice test 1, and there are 4 sections in the SAT test. We're going to look at 2 because my expertise pertains to reading, so we're going to look at the 2 reading sections. This is section 1, the longest section. It's 52 questions, 65 minutes. And it's just a reading comprehension section. You read the passage, you answer the questions. There are approximately 10 to 11 questions per passage in the reading comprehension section. All right, quick preview of section 2. Section 2 is the shorter of the 2 passages, 35 minutes, 44 questions. There are 4 passages in this section, and the questions are organized differently. So instead of having actual questions, you read passages, and then there are words or phrases that are underlined, and you have to answer questions about the underlined words or phrases. So this question 1 pertains to this word, question 2 pertains to this underlined passage, and then here's question 2. For this specific video, I'm going to have us look at section 1 because there are some tips that you can follow to help you answer the questions in section 1. So I just want to introduce you to those insights, to those suggestions. So turn with me to page 307. 307 might be the only page that you have in front of you, which is hopefully the case. But if you have this giant book, you go to page 307. And we have a passage. This is passage 4 of 5, and it's actually the hardest passage in this section, in my opinion. So when you encounter section 1 of the test, I want you to keep a few thoughts in mind. 1, the test lasts 65 minutes, and there are 5 passages. So, if it's a 65-minute test and there are 5 passages, that means that you get, I hope I'm not embarrassing myself with my math here, but you get approximately 13 minutes per passage. Now, if you only take 11 minutes to read the passage and answer the questions, great, just go on to the next passage. But if you spend 20-25 minutes on one passage just because it's a really hard passage and the questions are tough, you're wasting your time. All of these questions are worth the same amount of points. The easy questions, the hard questions, they're all worth the same. So if you spend 5 minutes on a difficult question, you're wasting time and you're losing points that you could earn on some easier questions. So I tell students that they need to spend approximately 13 minutes per passage, just as a guideline. If you take more time, take a few more minutes, but don't take 20 minutes. If you only take 10 minutes and you finish a passage, great, just go on to the next passage, and then that'll give you extra time at the end of the test so that you can review your answers. All right, other advice for these reading comprehension passages. In my SAT prep classes, I give students some rules for how to attack these passages, so I'm just going to walk you through these rules. You should have this page in front of you. You should also have a pen in your hand. So like anything that I write, you should write. Just so you can keep these thoughts in your brain and down on paper. So when you first encounter the passage, I don't recommend that you actually read the passage first. Instead, I recommend that you read the first 3 questions. that lets you preview the test, or rather preview the questions. So as you read the passage, you know what to look for. So I'm going to start by previewing the questions here in this test. So question 32 is the first one for this test. And question 32 says, the main purpose of the passage is to. Okay, so I know I'm going to answer a question that pertains to like the main purpose, the overall reason that the passage exists. Okay, question 33. I'm going to zoom in a bit for you. The central claim of the passage is that. I honestly don't know the difference between questions 32 and 33. Like, what's the difference between main purpose and central claim? I'm not sure, but I'm just going to keep that in my brain. At the very least, I need to know why this passage was written. And then Wolf uses the word we throughout the passage mainly to. Okay, so I need to look for the pronoun we. I know that Virginia Woolf wrote the passage, so that's why I see the word there. And no, she did not misspell her name. She just used two O's. So I need to look for we. Who is we? All right, so I've read the first three questions. Next, I need to circle vocab. So the SAT has a new type of vocabulary question. They don't ask just straight away, what does this word mean? They don't put menagerie on the question and say, what does menagerie mean? They ask vocab in context. So we're looking for specific vocabulary questions because we're going to circle the word when it appears in the passage. So let's look for vocab. We know we're looking for we. Okay, I get that. But where's a vocab specific question? Aha, question 40. Which choice most closely captures the meaning of the figurative sixpence referred to in lines 70 and 71? For the vocab questions, they're going to give you the word they want you to define, and they're going to give you a line number. So they're giving you a clue. What you do is, before you read the passage, look for this word in lines 70 and 71 and circle it. So sixpence, 70 and 71. Now that I've circled these two words, when I encounter the words in the passage itself, I'll know that I'm going to need to define them in some way or another. Now I'm going to look for any other vocabulary questions, and I encourage you to do the same among the questions that are in front of you. And hopefully you notice there are no more vocabulary questions. So we're done with instruction 2. Okay. Advice 3. Read the intro. By intro, I mean this portion. Different kind of font, different font size, but this introduction helps us in a number of ways. So I'm going to read it now. The passage is adapted from Virginia Woolf, The Three Guineas. Copyright 1938 by Harcourt. Here, Woolf considers the situation of women in English society. We just learned a lot of information in this introduction. So first, we learned that this passage was written in 1938. Among the 5 passages that you're going to be required to read for the reading comprehension portion of the SAT or the PSAT, you're going to get one that's old. And by old, I mean it was written in 1789 or 1851 or, in this case, 1938. The older passages tend to be the most difficult, mainly because writers who wrote long ago, writers whose words we still read, they tend to have written in complex ways that just make it challenging for us to understand. So here we just know to prepare our brain for a difficult passage. Also, we know that the author's name is Virginia Woolf, and she's writing about women in English society. So the reading comprehension passages could be about a number of topics. They could be about science. Let me find a science passage for you just to show you. They could be about science. These paired passages are about space mining. They could be about more science, DNA, percentages, etc. They could be about like social studies, as this one is about. Or they could be literature-based, which this one is. By by reading the introduction here, I already know what to expect. So my brain is ready for this topic, as opposed to a science topic. Technically, they categorize this topic as part of the global conversation. So this is part of the global conversation about feminism. So I know I'm going to read a feminist passage. So I have read the first 3 questions. I've circled vocabulary. I've read the introduction. And now I'm just going to read the passage. As a reminder, if I'm writing, you write it too. So read the passage. And then focus on first 10 lines. So obviously you need to read the passage to answer questions, but I encourage you to read the first 10 lines to figure out if you know what's going on. Let's say you read the passage and you don't understand. You don't want to get to the end. You don't want to get all the way to here and still be confused. That's going to waste time. So instead, what you should do, read the first 3 lines, and then if you're still confused, just start over. So that way you know that you need to start over within 10 lines as opposed to 85 lines. And then after that, you just answer the questions. So I'm going to walk through this passage with you just to show you my thinking, to show you how I would answer these questions. I chose this passage in particular because it's the hardest passage in the section. So I want to walk you through how I would answer these difficult questions and just how I would understand this difficult passage. So let us read. Close at hand is a bridge over the river Thames, an admirable vantage ground for us to make a survey. The river flows beneath. Barges pass laden with timber bursting with corn. There on one side are domes and spires of the city. On the other, Westminster and the House of Parliament. These all sound like British places, and so I know she's writing about English society. It is a place to stand by the hour dreaming, but not now. So if I were reading this passage and taking the test, I might underline but not now, because that signals something different is happening. So she wrote about us making a survey, us just looking out at the peaceful scene, but she says, but not now. Now we are pressed for time. Now we are here to consider facts. Now we must fix our eyes upon the procession of the sons of educated men. So now I know that this procession of the sons of educated men is important. Maybe you don't know exactly what a procession looks like, but you can get a feel for it. You know they're educated men, so maybe they're people in, I don't know, graduation garb. If you don't know a procession, you could think of it as just a line, a group of people walking together in some sort of formation. So she's writing about this procession of the sons of educated men. All right, let's see what she has to say about them. There they go, our brothers who have been educated in public schools and universities, mounting those steps, passing in and out of those doors, ascending those pulpits, preaching, teaching, administering justice, practicing medicine, transacting business, making money. It is a solemn sight, always, a procession, like a caravanserai crossing a desert. Maybe you don't know what that word means. You don't have to. If you get a word that confuses you, just keep going. Maybe you need to know what it means later, but right now, you just don't know. That's fine. Keep going. But now, for the past 20 years or so, it is no longer a sight merely, a photograph or fresco scrawled upon the walls of time at which we can look with merely an aesthetic appreciation. For there, traipsing along at the tail end of the procession, we go ourselves. Now, weren't we supposed to identify what we refers to? Well, we see the word, and so we need to figure out who she refers to. And that makes a difference. We who have looked so long at the pageant in books or from a curtained window watched educated men leaving the house at about 9:30 to go to an office, returning to the house at about 6:30 from an office, need look passively no longer. We too can leave the house, can mount those steps, pass in and out of those doors, make money, administer justice. All right, I'm going to pause. I see we again, and I know that at the beginning she wrote about the sons of educated men. So the sons are the they, and then she says we. Well, Virginia is the first name of the author, and it's also a woman's name. So maybe it's possible that we here just refers to women. So either on your text or just in your brain, You can just put down women as a possibility for what we refers to. We who now agitate these humble pens may in another century or two speak from a pulpit. Nobody will dare contradict us then. We shall be the mouthpiece of the divine spirit. A solemn thought, is it not? Who can say whether, as time goes on, we may not dress in military uniform with gold lace on our breasts, swords at our side, and something like the old family coal scuttle in our hands, save that that venerable object was never decorated with plumes of white horsehair? You laugh. Indeed, the shadow of a little house still makes those dresses look a little queer. We have worn private clothes so long, but we have not come here to laugh, or to talk of fashions, men's and women's. We are here on the bridge to ask ourselves certain questions. And they are very important questions, and we have very little time in which to answer them. The questions that we have to ask and to answer about that procession during this moment of transition are so important they may well change the lives of all men and women forever. For we have to ask ourselves here and now, do we wish to join that procession or don't we? On what terms shall we join that procession? Above all, where is this leading us, the procession of educated men? The moment is short. It may last 5 years, 10 years, or perhaps only a matter of a few months longer. But you will object. You have no time to think. You have your battles to fight, your rent to pay, your bazaars to organize. So she's saying you may object. And I'm wondering, I'm suspicious. I believe she's still talking to women. Because she said we earlier. She's saying you. And so I think her audience, she imagines in her audience that her audience is female. But you will object. You have no time to think. You have your battles to fight, your rent to pay, your bazaars to organize. That excuse shall not serve you, madam. Oh, she is talking to women. As you know from your own experience, and there are facts that prove it, the daughters of educated men have always done their thinking from hand to mouth, not under green lamps at study tables in the cloisters of secluded colleges. They have thought while they stirred the pot, while they rocked the cradle. It was thus that they won us the right to our brand new sixpence. Here's that word. What does it mean? It falls to us now to go on thinking. How are we to spend that sixpence? Think we must. All right. When you encounter the word you have to define, I personally encourage you to think up in your brain or write down a synonym. How are we to spend that sixpence? How are we to spend that? I don't know. What does she mean? Does she mean actual money? Doubtful. Does she mean like information? Maybe. Does she mean a chance to do something that other women couldn't do before? Maybe. So I'm just going to put chance. Okay. Let us think in offices and omnibuses while we are standing at the crowd watching coronations and lords and mayors shows. Let us think in the gallery of the House of Commons and the law courts. Let us think at baptisms and marriages and funerals. Let us never cease from thinking. What is this civilization in which we find ourselves? What are these ceremonies and why should we take part in them? What are these professions and why should we make money out of them? Where, in short, is it leading us, the procession of the sons of educated men? Now it's time to answer some questions. Let me move my document camera. Let me move it the other way. And we're back, sports fans. Let's do this. The main purpose of this passage is to do what? All right. Read through all the questions. Don't pick an answer and just stick with it. You have to read all the options first. So, emphasize the value of a tradition. I doubt that because she's talking about changing tradition. She writes about these sons of educated men who get degrees and have opportunities, but she's also saying that there are women now becoming educated too. So I don't think she's emphasizing the value of tradition. Stress the urgency of an issue. Well, that's a possibility. And doesn't she frequently say, but not now. Now we are pressed for time. Now we are here to consider facts. So if you're pressed for time, it seems like you're urgent. You have to do something quickly. So for that question, sorry if I'm making unnecessary noise, but for that question, I'm just going to maybe put a little check mark there. Highlight the severity of social divisions. I don't think she assumes that men and women have differences, but she's not highlighting the severity. Question the feasibility of an undertaking. She's not like crossing the Delaware at midnight or something. She's not thinking about that type of problem, so that's irrelevant. So we're going to go with B. She does stress the urgency of an issue. All right. Central claim. Central claim of the passage is that educated women face a decision about how to engage with existing institutions. Something about that answer attracts me. I like it. She's saying that women face a decision. She says that now we must decide. So I'm going to put a little check mark. Women can have positions of influence in English society only if they give up some of their traditional roles. She doesn't encourage women to give up being mothers, so I don't think that's right. The male monopoly on power in English society has had grave and continuing effects. One could make that argument, but I don't think she does. She doesn't say that, because there have been no women in government, societies go to war more often. She hasn't made that argument, although plenty of people have. She just doesn't talk about male monopolies on power. The entry of educated women into positions of power traditionally held by men will transform those positions. That's a close one too. I think our answer is between A and D, but I'm just going to tell you right now, I'm going to choose A instead of D, and here's why. So D talks about how women moving into positions of power will change those positions. So when more women become bankers or firefighters or something, it's going to change those institutions. And that has happened with the feminist movement. But again, that is not what Virginia Woolf writes about. She says that educated women face a decision. Think we must. All right. Woolf uses the word we throughout the passage, mainly to reflect the growing friendliness among a group of people. I don't hear her talking about friendliness. Advance the need for candor among a group of people. Candor is another word for frankness. It's another word for speaking your mind honestly. But she's not arguing that women should speak their minds honestly. She says that women just need to think about how they're going to use that sixpence. Establish a sense of solidarity among a group of people. Maybe? Let's say this word solidarity confuses you. I happen to know what it means because, hey, I can look it up. But you can't do that while you're taking the test. So if you find a word that you don't know the definition to, just pause and look at the other answers. Because maybe what you end up doing is crossing out all the other answers, so you just realize, oh, well, that's the only answer left. It's got to be that answer. Let's just go on to D. Reinforce the need for respect among a group of people. Respect matters. Aretha Franklin sang about it. But is that what Virginia Woolf writes about? I don't think it is. So C is the correct answer. Even if you didn't know what solidarity meant, you could still answer. You could still choose C with the process of elimination. But watch this. Solidarity, this is my unrefined definition. It essentially means groupness. If a group has solidarity, they are a tightly knit group. And she encourages women to build their solidarity. According to the passage, Woolf chooses the setting of the bridge because it, A, is conducive to a mood of fanciful reflection. Conducive means brings about easily. And I don't. She wants to reflect, yes, but fanciful reflection would be the kind of reflection that makes you think about writing a fantasy novel, and I don't see her thinking in that way. B, provides a good view of the procession of the sons of educated men. Yeah, that's probably the answer, because that's what she writes about from at the beginning, the very first paragraph. Is within sight of historic episodes to which she alludes? Nope. Is symbolic of the legacy of past and present sons of educated men. I mean, you could say the bridge is symbolic of a change in society, bridging the gap from the old to the new. But let's just remember, right here, she says, close at hand is the bridge over the River Thames, an admirable vantage ground for us to make a survey, to look out. Now we are to consider facts. Now we must fix our eyes upon the procession of the sons of educated men. So we're fixing our eyeballs on these men, these educated men, and the opportunities that they have, and that we women, from her perspective, now have that didn't have before. So, given the choices between D and B, I'm going with B. 36. Wolf indicates, sorry for the extra noise. Wolf indicates that the procession she describes in the passage has come to have more practical influence in recent years. Maybe? Has become a celebrated feature of English public life. Not really. Includes all the richest and most powerful men in England. She doesn't say it includes all the richest and most powerful. Anytime you see a word like all or every, it's a clue that the answer may be wrong, because she never says all. And then has become less exclusionary in its membership in recent years. Well, if something is exclusionary, it excludes. And this procession has now started adding women, so the procession is less exclusionary. But watch this. Let's say you weren't sure about your answer for 36. Well, this is one of those paired questions where you have question 37, where it can help you with 36. So some people dislike these types of questions because the fact is, if you get question 36 wrong, you're likely going to get 37 wrong. True, but think of it like this. When you're given these paired questions, now you know that the answer for 36 has to be one of these four options. So you've narrowed down your options. So I find these questions to be helpful. And sometimes I answer these questions first. Like if I don't understand this question, I'll just go to this question, answer it first, and that points me to the answer for the previous question. So which choice provides the best evidence for the answer to the previous question? Well, has become less exclusionary in its membership. So we're looking for a passage or a sentence that talks about the fact that women are now a part of this procession of the sons of educated men. Lines 12 to 17. There they go, our brothers who have been educated in public schools and universities, all these brothers, what they've done, stopping with money. She does not talk about women. She talks about how men had these opportunities. So I'm pretty sure the answer is not A. Yeah, you can see it. There it is. Not A. All right, line 17 to 19. It is a solemn sight always at procession, like a caravanserai crossing the desert. No, irrelevant. 23 to 24. For there, traipsing along at the tail end of the procession, we go ourselves. We know now that the we is women. That suggests that the procession is less exclusionary. I happen to know that C is the correct answer, but I don't want you to quit on the question. So even though C is the right answer, I'm still going to look up D because maybe I missed something. So line 30 to 34. We too can leave the house, can mount those steps, pass in and out of those doors, make money, administer justice. We can agitate these humble pens, etc. Well, she's talking about we as in women, but she doesn't talk about the procession in this line. So even though she talks about women in D, she doesn't talk about women in the procession. 38. Forgive all the adjusting. 38. Wolf characterizes the questions in line 53 to 57 for we men as both. This is a tough question because you have to do a lot of tracking back and forth. You have to go back to 53 to 57, reread it, and then answer the question based on what you've reread. Then you have to find another quotation that supports your answer for 38. So it's a tough question, and it's one that pushes students to be resilient. Like if you don't feel like turning back to 53 to 57, or you don't feel like reading it carefully, you're going to struggle to answer this correctly. So what the SAT testers want to find out is, like, do you have it? Are you willing to put in the time? Are you willing to care about the details? So let me adjust my document camera and let's look at some details. All right. Here's a question. Now, let's look back, 53 to 57. For we have to ask ourselves here and now, do we wish to join that procession or don't we? On what terms shall we join the procession? Above all, where is it leading us, the procession of the sons of educated men? All right, these questions are both what? Controversial and threatening. I don't hear them being threatening, and since threatening is not the right answer, A is not the right answer. Weighty and unanswerable? Yes, they are weighty. Are they unanswerable? I don't see Virginia Woolf saying they can't be answered. She says women need to think about them, so B is wrong. Momentous and pressing. Momentous means important. Pressing means urgent. So they're important and they need to be answered now. Well, she talks about now we are pressed for time. That sounds pressing, doesn't it? I'm thinking C is correct, but I'm not going to circle yet. Provocative and mysterious. I don't think she sees these questions as mysterious, and provocative means like shocking, and that doesn't fit here either. So probably C. Now, we need to answer question 39. Question 39 is a tricky question. I'm just going to tell you the two answers that are not right, because I want to zero in on these two, because one of these answers supports half of this question. One of these answers supports half of this question, and one of the answers supports both parts of the answer. So we're going to look at line 57 first. It's a short portion. The moment is short, like just those 4 words. If the moment is short, that doesn't mean it's like short in stature, like Kevin Hart or something. It means there's not a lot of time, so we need to answer now. Well, the moment is short supports pressing. True. But it does not support momentous. Let's look at B, 48 to 49. And they are very important questions, and we have very little time in which to answer them. If they're very important, aren't they momentous? And if we have little time in which to answer them, aren't they pressing? So B is the correct answer because it supports both momentous and pressing. Question 40. Which choice most closely captures the meaning of the figurative sixpence referred to in lines 70 and 71? All right, I encourage you, whenever you encounter the word, to come up with a synonym. We came up with like information or chance, like opportunity. It was thus that they, the women of the past, won us, women of the present, the right to our brand new sixpence. It falls on us now to go on thinking. How are we to spend that sixpence? Okay, now plug in all the word options to see if they fit here. How are we to spend that? How are we to spend that tolerance? No, doesn't fit. How are we to spend that knowledge? Maybe. Whoops. How are we to spend that opportunity? How are we to spend that opportunity? Doesn't that fit? Like, how are we to spend that chance? I'm thinking it's opportunity, but let's check perspective. How are we to spend that perspective? Don't fit. Nope. No, Colonel Sanders, you're wrong. 41. The range of places and occasions listed in lines 72 to 76 led us to funerals, mainly serves to emphasize. This one's tough. Let's review these sentences. She says, Let us think in offices, in omnibuses, while we are standing in the crowd watching coronations or in Lord's Mayor shows. Let us think in the gallery of the House of Commons, in the law courts. Let us think at baptisms and marriages and funerals. Okay, so they're thinking all over the place. What effect does that have? Well, does that range of places emphasize how novel the challenges faced by women is? Not really. How pervasive the need for critical reflection is? Critical reflection, a synonym for that could be thinking. So I'm going to put a check mark because that's probably right. Because does that set of sentences emphasize how complex the political and social issues of the day are? Well, she's not talking about issues, a host of issues. She's just writing about the social issue as it pertains to women. Not right. How enjoyable the career possibilities for women are. Well, we have a lot of career opportunities. Galleries, marriage, funerals, baptisms, marriages. Although she just mentions like baptisms and marriages and funerals, that's not really a career opportunity. I mean, like people get paid to perform those rites, but I just don't see this as an opportunity or a career possibility, so I'm going to go with B. And that is how you think through and answer questions on the SAT reading passages. Now you may object. You may say, "Oh, Mr. A, this took us about 30 minutes to finish this one passage, and I don't have that kind of time." You're right, you don't. But I just wanted to show you how I think through a passage, how you could think through a passage, and all of these moves that we made, you can make in your head much faster. But it helps to slow down the practice first before you go at full speed. Like if you want to practice free throws, it helps to slow down the mechanics and think about your foot position and your elbow position and your follow through. Think through that slowly and then shoot the free throw. We're thinking through this passage slowly, and you should think through these passages by practicing on your own. You should practice on your own. You should practice on your own. And then when it comes time for the test, you can complete it at regular speed and do quite well. Few reminders. When you attack these passages, remember that there's 65 minutes, 5 passages, so it's about 13 minutes a passage. There's no one timing you on the passages. It just gives you a ballpark figure. Also, read the first 3 questions first. Circle vocab questions. Look throughout for the vocab questions. Read the intro, which is here. Then read the passage and focus on the first 10 lines. If you're confused, start over. After you get to line 10, start over and then read the passage. Remember, there are a number of ways to study. You can buy this book from Amazon and just take SAT tests, practice tests. You can also study on Khan Academy. I highly recommend it. It's quite incredible, to be honest, and it's all free. And you can also come to tutoring at the Fishers High School Library. Tuesdays and Thursdays afternoons, we have tutoring, and so you're welcome to join to get some SAT help. Let me know if you have questions, and have a wonderful day. Go Tigers!